Good afternoon. Welcome to Cohn and Sharma, presented by the Sleeper app. We are providing 49ers therapy this week. Having a tough time. Niner fans, Niner players, Niner coaches. And we are here to make it a little bit tougher. Really rub some salt in those wounds. You know what I'm saying? That's what we do. How you doing, Karan?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Getting a little bit you're at the slap happy portion.
Yeah. I just out of curiosity, how is this loss compared to the 2019 loss when you were there? Players.
This is the most crushing defeat I've ever seen. I've never seen a more painful defeat in the history of sports. Because of what happened in overtime. I've never seen anything like it. I think everyone it's starting to sink in that it was a botched job, that they blew it. But we've talked about overtime a lot. Maybe we'll talk about it a little bit more. Let's talk about Nick Bosa.
So I wanted to bring up when I saw the press conference, and I wanted to watch the 49ers press conference. As a 49er fan, it has been very hard to get on YouTube, to watch ESPN, to watch any of these networks, and to see your team. You know, it's like that sad movie you watch when you know that person's going to die, but you still watch it. Eventually, you just don't want to watch the movie anymore, right?
Yeah.
You were there. And to me, when I saw Nick's reaction to how Steve Wilks called the game, I remember texting one of my friends and says, guarantee Steve Wilks will be fired this offseason. It happened a lot sooner than I thought. And to me, it's very apparent that Kyle really holds a few players in that tier where he will listen to them. And it became very clear that Nick lost respect for the defensive coordinator. He did not think he was prepared. He did not think that he had the right game plan. The stats may differ on Nick, but it's perception, right? And so Nick essentially, to me, without saying it, was like, I'm done with this guy. And I'm not sure if you picked up on that or got the inkling before that happened.
I absolutely did get that inkling. It seemed like Nick Bosa was out on Steve Wilks early on. But to me, like that just sort of covered up for the fact that Nick Bosa wasn't playing his best. Like it's easy for Nick Bosa. Nick Bosa was great this year. He was great with the media. He was really generous with his time, but he didn't play his best. And if I were Steve Wilks, I'd be really upset. Like, man, I took this job and you picked this year to sort of like mail it in. I mean, for your standards, you didn't play that well. Like he's always up to rush the quarterback. So is Chase Young. Those guys give great effort when it's time to rush the quarterback. But all year, when it was time to set the edge as a wide 9 defensive end, none of the DNs did it. None of them. And Nick Bosa set the tone. You know who does set the edge as a wide 9 D end really freaking well? Myles Garrett.
He does.
He really does. Nick used to, but he doesn't anymore. And if Nick's not going to put in the effort, why should Chase Young? Why should Randy Gregory? Why should anyone? And how is that Steve Wilks' fault? He can't motivate Nick Bosa. Nick Bosa is getting paid to motivate himself and other people.
Well, the first 5 minutes of the Super Bowl, you saw that a different intensity was coming out.
And when the players actually played hard, Steve Wilks' defense worked.
It did.
It did.
It did. And so to me, did Steve Wilks,
the players never looked themselves in the mirror? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I think that the part of the
26-year-old Nick Bosa is over here, be like, man, Steve Wilks couldn't get me to play hard. I'm sorry. Keep going.
I just think that's essentially why he was fired, was because he could not motivate the players. For some odd reason, the defensive line, because he was able to motivate the secondary, which I know everyone wants to bring up that, but Charvarius Ward had the best season of his life. Wasn't the reason why I thought we were going to lose the Super Bowl because of the secondary. That was not the case. The secondary played lights out for the most part.
Why does this defense need a coach to motivate them? You're trying to win the Super Bowl. You guys have all gotten paid. You're all on your second contract. Like, what motivate? You need someone to jump up and down and give you a hug? What are you talking about?
I don't know. I find it very fascinating. I also find it very fascinating that for me, the biggest issue with the 49ers was the defensive line, and they've got Chris, who hasn't changed, but nothing was ever brought. Chris is untouchable at this point. You know what I mean?
But the issue with the defensive line was what? Effort. Again, like, look in the mirror. Nick, Chase, Eric, Javon, all of you. You really needed D'Amico Ryans to play your best? That's what it was? That's what you're going to say? Come on.
I also think probably not publicly said, but I also think Fred Warner having two linebacker coaches and then having Steve Wilks, he probably felt like he wasn't getting up to his par. And I think those two players had a very much a hand in the coach being let go.
I think that's too bad. I really feel like it, but I'm not surprised because I think that's sort of the culture of the 49ers that Kyle Shanahan creates. Shanahan's attitude.
Someone was going to get fired after that Super Bowl.
And Kyle's attitude is, it can't be me. Kind of like it starts from Jed. Like, Jed's like, you can't fire me. I'm the owner. And Kyle's like, yeah, you can't fire me. I'm the hotshot coach. And even though it's absolutely my fault that we lost this game, you can't fire me. So who are we going to scapegoat? And just keep going down the list. Well, not these highly paid defensive players who didn't give their best effort all season because they're already locked into contracts. So you're not going to get rid of Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead, Javon. Like, they're locked in, even though they're more culpable than the defensive coordinator. Let's get rid of the defensive coordinator.
Yeah, and if you're a defensive
He's an outsider anyway.
How envious is this job? Kyle's gonna scapegoat you. You got a very specific scheme you have to run. Yeah. And
you don't get to bring in any of your own assistant coaches.
You don't get to bring anybody in.
None. You're on your own. And as soon as Nick Bosa decides that he didn't like a call you made or a look you gave him, he's going to very calmly after the game say, yeah, I don't really think we were prepared for this one play. And that's him just destroying you.
And
castrating you.
That 4th and 1, Nick, you were right there, man. You were right there just to sack Mahomes and end the game. Like, I don't want to be an ass, but you were literally inches away from him. And
I mean, I don't have anything personally against Nick Bosa, but I think it's kind of gross how these players got Steve Wilks fired. I thought he did a good job this year. He was put in an impossible situation. I wouldn't have hired an outsider to run someone else's scheme. It was stupid, but you did, and he made the most of it. And when the players decided that they could find it within themselves to play hard that day, man, he did really, really well. He did better against the Chiefs than solid D'Amico Ryans ever did. And he got fired for it.
It wasn't his fault that Christian McCaffrey fumbled or the muff punt. Those were all done on special teams and offense. He had nothing to do with it.
His final drive was no good. He went with soft zone. How do we know that Kyle didn't tell him to do that? How do we know?
Well, that's the other thing that's become very apparent is that Kyle started interfering with Steve.
He can't help himself. I bet he pokes his nose into like the audio visual team, the people that make highlights for the team. That I bet he's in there like, hey, I want this and this and that. Like, he knows better.
Well,
he's the world's greatest expert on everything.
Well, Grant, I think again, the Super Bowl was a very good example of another coach who knew the situations, who knew everything because he gave other people those responsibilities, and another coach who was going to do it his way and not have anyone else help him and go down fighting like that. And as a player, that's got to be pretty frustrating because there's no matter how smart Kyle thinks he is, he can't be. Eventually, you're going to lose or cut corners somewhere. And I think when it comes to game situations, that's where Kyle falls short. And Andy did the same thing when he was younger with the Eagles, right? He did the same thing. And it took Kansas City Andy to figure out that, well, maybe I probably should have an offensive coordinator. Maybe I shouldn't be into this as much. If I'm working Monday to Saturday or Sunday, why can't I have someone run the script so I know, hey, maybe I should go for it on 4th and 2 before the game's over so then Patrick Mahomes doesn't get the ball back to tie it up. Maybe I run the ball on third down and make it a 3rd and 2. And maybe Brock can scramble for 2 yards and we can run out the clock. To me, overtime was never the issue, Grant. It was giving Mahomes the ball in regulation. With that, the Buffalo did the exact same thing. Had they had made the field goal that they missed, they would have given Mahomes plenty of time to march down the field and get a field goal. To me, that was the biggest mistake.
Who's running this team, though, to get back on topic? Is it Kyle? Or are there certain players on this team who are more powerful than him? They make more money than him. They have more standing than him. It seems like he keeps it real with everyone except Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, Eric Armstead. Like, there's a group of players on this team that seem to override the coach. And that's kind of interesting. Like, who's running this team? The Veteran Council? The Cabo crew? Who runs the freaking team?
I think because...
Does anyone?
I think because Kyle is such a, so intense and it burns people. It can wear on people and burn them out, that he does need to show favoritism to his players and certain players in order to keep that locker room afloat. I think that's the way he manages the team. Or
another cynical way to look at it is he's losing power on this team. That as you've given these mega contracts to Bosa and Fred Warner and George Kittle and Deebo Samuel, that this is much more of a player-driven team now. You got like 8 or 9 players that you can't say anything to. And in fact, they have a huge say over what's happening. And now that you just embarrassed them and yourself with this loss, you had to concede more power. And they just are going to pick the next defensive coordinator. And you're just trying to placate now. You're like, yo, like, hey, don't be mad at me. What do you want? What do you want? You want to go to Cabo? You want to go to Cancun? What is it? Let me know. Do you want to do DC? Like, let me know what you want. I will come through. Just don't get mad at me. That's where he's as very weak. That's what I see. A weak coach. Scrambling.
Again, Mike Shanahan ran into the same issues because once he no longer had John Elway, right? That leader in the locker room to say, you're going to do it.
Hey, Brian Greasy, what are you talking about?
They win anything with Brian Greasy? He
hates me.
Why?
Oh, gives me a stank eye. I just leave him alone. Sorry, Brian, for whatever I said.
I mean, you had the same concerns we all did when he was first hired. Why? He was hired out of the booth. He had no experience. You stated facts, right? I think that's the only time you ever mentioned it. You gave him
we're going to switch topics in a second. Ivan Tina says, who gets tasked in Washington to check for circumcisions? Wow. Change the name to foreskins close enough to... Okay, so you may have missed this. On the last show, me and my dad were looking at the prop bets on Bet US for the name of what they're going to change. And we said, why don't you just change it to the Jews? As 2 Jews, we think that would be kind of cool. You know what I'm saying? Just the Jews.
Just as offensive, as Redskins.
I'm not offended. I think it would raise awareness that we're still here. We still exist. We're still strong. Still standing.
Yeah.
No? Okay. All right. Matzo ball soup night? Who doesn't like matzo ball soup? It's delicious and good for you.
Yeah, it's good for you. It's a good soul food.
You're like, I don't want to talk about it. Kurt Garrett says, did Kyle's 1984 room hear all the Wilkes dissent? Did Kyle's 1984 room hear all the Wilkes dissent? Got it. Right. Because Kyle has every room bugged and he can listen to everyone and overhear everyone. And it's a surveillance state inside Santa Clara. And I'm sure the players were saying this and that, and I'm sure he heard it. Okay. Well,
for whatever reason, Wilkes never garnered the respect of the defensive line and linebackers. That was very apparent. But to me, look what he did to the secondary. Look what he did to Lenore. Lenore's a legit corner now. Ward is an all-pro. I mean, he lost Hufanga. Had Hufanga had stayed, who knows what he could have been this year. And so to me, you have Chris Kraseric. This was a perfect, in my mind, marriage, right? And they kind of were like, nah, we're good. Okay.
JAL says Kyle is the best coach ever. He single-handedly won 3 Super Bowls for 2 different organizations. He wasn't even a part of them. I hope they build a memorial someday in KC that says it felt like a field goal game.
It
felt like a field goal game. I said that with my dad an hour ago. Like, when Andy Reid gets inducted in the Hall of Fame, he needs to spend 2 minutes thanking Kyle Shanahan. Thank you for taking the ball, for saying it was a field goal game. All of it. Like, I wouldn't be here today without you. Being you. All you had to do was be you. Thank you.
Again, I go back to this. The 2 fumbles were the reason they lost.
We'll come to the fumbles in a second. I disagree with that because we'll talk about it. But whatever happened, they got to overtime and it was a whole new game. That shit was over. You had a new game, overtime, 0-0. All your sins are washed away, and you made more sins. Sessions says fired George Kittle after that mic'd up BS. Oh man. Okay. Last one, brother Bob. Kyle Levy is too damn stubborn and no accountability. All right, let's talk about the fumbles. These fumbles were huge, critical. First drive of the game. Christian McCaffrey uncharacteristically fumbles, and now we've seen that like George Kittle probably shoulda, coulda, woulda fell on it if he was playing to the whistle, but he wasn't. That hurts. That hurts.
Too busy being on ESPN or whatever.
Yeah,
or whatever.
We know he does that. He does that all the time. He likes having a little fun with it.
And I think, to me, watching it, I was like, they're getting 10-yard a clip this first drive.
Mm-hmm. This
is good. They're getting 10 yards.
This is what everyone thought they were going to do to the Chiefs' run defense.
Right. And I was like, go, do this. Exactly. And then all of a sudden that fumble happened. I was like, well, okay. Right. And so to me, all right, you can say the other fumble negated that fumble that the running back for Kansas City did. Fine. Pacheco, whatever. But that muffed punt, that was the only touchdown essentially the defense gave up in my mind in regulation, right? They gave up that touchdown.
Right. So it wasn't even a touchdown drive. It was like a touchdown play.
It was one play.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it was a perfectly schemed up play, wide open. That happens in the NFL. Guess what? Andy Reid's going to do that to you. And so to me, had those 2 fumbles not occurred, minimum, we'll do it conservative, Grant. We'll say 6 points, right? Even though we know it was 7 points and maybe 3 points for the Niners. They only lost by 3, Grant. It was the difference in the game.
For
really,
sure.
From an objective standpoint.
No doubt.
Where I think Kyle failed is that we're seeing shortcomings from Kyle because when things don't go according to plan, and I say plan where you have to have adversity, he cannot deviate because he's so in tuned on being the offensive coordinator. He's got too much control. What
I think you're saying, I mean, I don't need me to interpret you, but what I'm hearing is that the Niners should have won.
Yeah.
They should have won. And you know what? I freaking agree. And they know it. And that's why this loss is so painful. You should have beat them in regulation. You're better than the Chiefs. You should have beat them in regulation. You had every opportunity. Your mistakes cost you. And yet the grace of the football gods gave you another chance. You got to go to overtime. A whole new game. You won the toss. You messed it up before it even started.
Patrick Mahomes, I just turned it off. The look of Patrick Mahomes when they said we'll receive the ball was priceless. His mouth dropped. If you watch mic'd up, he's like this.
Yeah.
Again, situational awareness.
The fumbles were the reason they didn't win in regulation. But somehow they got a second chance and messed it up. That's why, to me, this is the most painful loss I've ever seen. Ever.
This is.
And maybe they'll bounce back from it, but wow, what an accomplishment that would be because this is crushing.
So their rallying cry last year was, we were robbed because
it wasn't our fault. If we'd had our quarterback, what are you going to say now?
What are you going to do now?
What are you going to say now? Hey man, next year we're going to know the rules. On your face. Next year we're going to be prepared and know the rules. And then you're toast. Watch out. Because our coach is going to be prepared. It's fourth time is a charm. Remember my cousin Vinny? Mm-hmm. When he's trying to explain why he should represent him and like the skeptical Jewish friend is like, so how many times did it take you to pass the bar? Surely twice, right? No, not twice. 6 times were a charm for me. 6 times. He's my cousin Vinny. He's walking into the courtroom with velour on. Kyle, is that a suit? It's cloth. He's sorry. But he does win at the end. Spoiler alert. They get off. They don't go to prison. My Cousin Vinny's the hero.
Yes.
They get married. They're going to have kids. It's a great movie.
It is a good movie. Utes.
The Utes. I always think of that when I watch college football and they play the Utah. The Utes. Anyway. So so we got George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, Darrell Luter Jr., Ray McLeod.
Again, the fumbles, I understand what McCaffrey was trying to do. I understand two people got to him. It's unfortunate, but I do feel like Kyle went away from Christian McCaffrey because of it, subconsciously, during the most important time of the game. And it was the third quarter where he should have been like, I got the offensive player of the year. And he did the same thing, Grant. He did the same thing in the Rams game. And that Rams game, up until the Super Bowl, to me, was the most painful loss in the Kyle Shanahan regime, because they should have beat the Rams that day. And they would have beaten the Bengals that upcoming Super Bowl, because they were a better team than the Bengals.
I got some trivia for you. Who is the 49ers' most efficient rusher in the playoffs?
Brock Purdy.
Yeah, Brock Purdy. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. 5.3 yards per carry. Christian McCaffrey, 4.5. They need to make that a bigger part of Brock Purdy's game. I think of him as like Jeff Garcia. Jeff Garcia would run a lot. Steve Young would scramble a lot. Purdy can do that more. I think it would make him a better player. A more playmaker.
It would, because guess what? That linebacker, instead of occupying the middle of the field, is looking at you.
Yeah. Forget Kyle, man. Go off script. I want you to. I think that the offense was just too McCaffrey focused in the playoffs.
Well, it showed. He ran out of gas, Grant. He just ran.
And he was their leading. He should never be their leading receiver. He's a nice check down option. He's a great second or third option in the passing game. But your passing game doesn't go through your running back on swing routes. What? Your passing game goes through Ayuk. He's a top 5 receiver in football, and he had 8 catches. Hold on. He had 9 catches. He had 9 catches, and McCaffrey had 19. That's backwards. That's backwards.
Well, to the next point, if we can talk about wide receivers, and I think.
Well, we'll get there in a second. First of all, we got to talk about college football. Let's do a little college football. I mean, college basketball. College basketball, which is much more important.
Correct.
Okay, hold on.
So,
the show's sponsored by Sleep, the sleeper app, which is like, daily fantasy. And usually we do basketball, but it's like, what is it? The All-Star break?
Yes.
So we got college basketball because we just got to get some action down. So I got this. I'm screen sharing my phone right now, which is like the most technologically savvy thing I've ever done. So I'm just looking at my phone. This is exactly what the app looks like. It's not on websites yet, but it's available in California. Download the app. Use promo code Cohn. Get that. Use that. There's a QR code. Look at that. It's amazing. Anyway, we're looking at Villanova, Georgetown tonight. Get some action on a game that I don't know either team. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to place bets. I'm going to do some research. E. Dixon. See him on the left? I've never heard of him. But the over-under 16.5 points. Let's do some research. He had 18 points last game. But before then, he had 2 games in a row below. I don't trust him. I don't know him. I don't trust him. Eric Dixon? Less.
Okay.
So I'm fading you, Eric Dixon. Let's go to Epps, Mr. Epps on Georgetown, 21.5. That's a lot of points for Jaden Epps. Who do they think he is?
He looks like he's hitting that though.
He did last time.
And the one
but against Villanova, Villanova was a good team when I was a kid. I assume they're still a good team.
They're not currently ranked.
Damn. I should probably. UCLA sucks too. That's my school. I'm hating on all these kids. You guys are all terrible at basketball. I watch college. No, less. All right, let's go with this dude. Tyler Burton rebounds. Nah, less. I don't believe in Tyler Burton either. Sorry, less.
Oh, less across the board.
Oh my God. Okay, Styles points, rebounds, and assists. 18.5 when last time he had 16 against Creighton. Sorry, Dontrez Styles, less. Who else can I bet against? I love betting against kids I don't know. It's not going to work out for you in life. Sorry, Justin Moore. How about just assists for Justin Moore? 2.5? Easy, less. No chance for you. Last one. What's your name? Jay Heath. Oh, I've heard of you. Like 1.5 3-pointers made. You're a college basketball player? No, absolutely not. Let's lock it in. $10. Here's my thing about college basketball. It's terrible. They're awful.
It is pretty bad. I was at the Syracuse UNC game, and the amount of jump shots, wide open jump shots that are missed in college basketball are astonishing in a game. Are just astonishing.
I like wagering on it. I don't like watching it, but I'll wager on it. Thanks to Sleeper. But what I'll say is when I went there 15 years ago, when I was in college, I went to UCLA. Ben Hallen was the coach, and we would just dribble for like 27 seconds of the 35-second shot clock and call it defense. Like, hey, we're playing ball possession. Like, what are you doing? This is awful. I don't know if it's still like that anymore, but man, they got to quicken up the pace of that game.
I believe the shot clock has decreased, but everyone's out to make a lot of 3-pointers now. It's the Steph.
Oh, okay.
Curry. Yeah,
the Steph Curry's fault.
Yeah, but Steph.
I blame Steph.
It's
all right, that's way too much conversation about college basketball, but hey, it's almost March. Okay. The title of the show is this a rebuilding year for the Niners? Are they rebuilding? Are they transitioning? Like what is the mission statement this offseason?
So if you see the 49ers, they're even more top heavy than they were last year. And last year they were pretty top heavy. And in my mind, they've got about 10 or 9 players that accumulate almost all of their cap, right? And so to me, one of the things you can do to placate that is double down on the draft. And to me, they finally have draft equity. They're not starting off in the 3rd round. They have 1st and 2nd round picks. You know, they've got, I think, 10, 11 picks this year. To me, I think the 49ers, and this goes against everything Kyle Shanahan in the last few years has stand for, but I just saw the Rams do it, and I just saw the Seahawks do it, not as successfully as the Rams. I just saw the Green Bay Packers do it. The youngest team in the NFL is that they played those rookies, they played those young players, they went through the bumps.
That's exactly what the Rams did.
They went through the bumps and came out a much better team than they did in the beginning of the year. Granted, they were like 9-10, 10-6. I get it. But they were one of the hottest teams coming in. They've got the experience that they need. They're able to transition. And I think when I say transition is that I know 49ers don't want to hear this, but I saw it with Jim Harbaugh's team in 2013. That team got old really quick. And that happens in the NFL. And
this team's getting old really quick.
This team is getting old really quick. And the Super
Eric
Bowl,
Armstead's getting old really quick. Debo Samuel's getting old really quick.
George Kittle is getting old.
I mean, McCaffrey could be next. He's a running back.
And when they hit the wall, they hit the wall.
He hasn't hit it yet, but you never know.
He hasn't
no.
yet.
No.
But it was very telling that they shut down Debo, and Debo was targeted 11, 12 times in the game, and he had butt kiss impact. You know why? Because he cannot run routes. And the transition period, I think the 49ers have to invest a lot in young, fast, physical players, which they don't have currently. As many as they did.
They got to get faster.
They do. They look slow.
Like Debo's their gadget guy, the guys who's supposed to be like, scaring everyone pre-snap with all of his motion and stuff. First of all, he's jogging through it. He's not as fast as he used to be. Like, honestly, when they do that stuff with Ray McCloud, he runs it with so much more conviction. I think it's more effective. Just that fake jet sweep. What's the point of having Debo do that anymore?
Again, I think Debo lost 2 or 3 years of his productivity being that running back for that year. I really do. I think he lost a year or 2 of his playable. He did.
Yeah.
He did.
Yeah.
He did.
That's the toll it takes.
Yeah, and I think that's why you don't pay a running back, and that's what he became for 1 year. Think about that. Has he ever been the same player after he did that to himself?
Nah, and if you think about it too, that year when he was great and he was an all-pro wide receiver, he was not a great wide receiver that year. He was leading the league in drops, and then halfway through the year, they pivoted and made him this hybrid where he was getting most of his value in production playing running back. And that was gimmicky. Like, it was a bunch of stuff the league hadn't seen. There weren't that many concepts they were doing with him. Once the league caught up, it was over. And then all that value you were getting is gone, and you're just like paying all this money for a wide receiver who can't beat man-to-man coverage. Yikes.
If he can break the first tackle behind the line of scrimmage, he's great.
Yeah, but you can get guys like that. Like Rashee Rice is like that. You could throw him screens. They're not paying him money.
No.
I mean, big money.
No, not Deebo Samuel money. No.
So to your point, like, I don't know, maybe in the past when they had Jimmy Garoppolo, who wasn't particularly precise.
That's
the point, right? Like you need these sort of cheat codes. Hey man, just throw the ball like this, and Deebo will catch it, and then he'll take the. But now you actually have a very good quarterback.
You stole. So to me, they have to change their philosophy how they draft wide receivers.
Yeah,
because they need route runners. They need route runners because Brock is based off timing, and Brock is based off where you're going to be.
And he's an accurate guy who's going to trust you to win and get open.
So to me,
you can't trust Deebo.
Can't
throw with anticipation to Deebo.
No, and the same thing with Kittle. I hate to say it, but if you look at a lot of Kittle's gains this year, they were broken plays as well as man-to-man coverage where he beat his man. But often than not, he was not targeted very much because he was covered, because he doesn't get open like Travis Kelce does.
When a defense plays really good man-to-man coverage, the guys who get targeted are McCaffrey, Ayuk, and Jennings.
Because they're good route runners.
Yes.
Oh, the other guy in the Super Bowl, what's his name? Is it Connolly? I mean, he's a great route runner.
Conley. Yeah.
Right?
Did a good job.
He did a good job.
He's a better route runner than Deebo.
Correct. And
yeah, I think that dude, they got to move. I don't know if they can move on from Deebo, but they don't need Deebo anymore. He's overpriced. He's taking too many targets. Like they don't need him.
Deebo and Kittle were for Jimmy. They were the reason why Jimmy did so well. That they were targeted more. And I think there's no coincidence when Brock came, the offenses started going through Ayuk, right?
Yeah.
And McCaffrey.
Yeah, it did.
Switch.
Yes, it did.
Those two switched, right? Because it was Kittle and Deebo for the longest time. And I think the world of Kittle and I think the world of Deebo, but I don't think it's a good fit with the quarterback that you have right now.
No,
it's not.
No, go link up with Jimmy Garoppolo. Oh wait, he's suspended.
That was
bizarre.
Bizarre.
All these people are like getting their wow. I don't know if you want to call it a comeuppance or just like a lot of people are getting humbled like in a staggering way. Whoa. Kyle, Jimmy, Kittle, Bosa. Like, yikes. You guys didn't read the room. You guys, the football gods are mad at you.
And if you want to be really honest, maybe if the 49ers had not been so prideful in winning contracts, and maybe if they had Bosa come in when they should have and not played this thing, maybe he would have come in firing on all cylinders and maybe they wouldn't have even been in this point. So to me, what they're doing right now isn't working. This was their best shot of winning with this core group of people. Maybe next year will be different. But to me, think about this, Grant. Kansas City had played an extra game. Kansas City was on the road twice. Kansas City had less rest. The 49ers had a bye. The 49ers,
they were missing their Pro Bowl left guard.
They're missing their Pro Bowl left guard. Kansas City had the 49ers. What do we say about 49ers? They get exhausted and they're done. Right? Well, Kansas City just threw that out the way. They went through the gauntlet and they did everything. And so to me, the 49ers, this was their best shot winning with this core. And I think the players know that. And I think that's why you're seeing some of this devastation because they let it slip. And I think as fans, this is the 2013 Patrick Willis, Navarro Bowman, Colin Kaepernick, Frank Gore, Joe Staley group that didn't get a ring. And I think I think that's
a great point.
I think
because it's their third straight run. Just like that year. It's their third straight run. It's exhausting. They're getting older. And that fourth year, that team just didn't have it. They just didn't have it. They were 8-8.
They started off really well, but you saw it go off the rails.
I think they were 7-4 at one point.
Yes.
Then they finished the season 1-4.
With 1-4. They didn't win another game. And
yeah.
I see a lot of correlations. I also feel like the 49ers, they're going to have tougher competition within the division. They're going to have tougher competition outside of division, the NFC. The NFC itself is getting younger. They may not have the quarterbacks, but at the end of the day, Kyle needs to change what he's doing, or else this is going to be the same thing over and over again. And he's going to get fired because of it. Because Jed can't.
It's too bad they can't get out of the Debo contract, the Eric Armstead contract. Those are two.
Get out of those they can't get out of the Debo.
I mean,
contract?
they can. It's just going to be tough. You're going to have to take the dead cap hit the first year, but I mean, they do have a nice young core. Brock, freaking Jordan Mason, Juwan Jennings, Brandon Ayuk. I guess Nick Bosa still counts as young. Lenore, Jair Brown, Talanoa. Like, they do have a good young core. They absolutely do. Spencer Burford. Aaron Banks. Those are two. So they do, but got a lot of older players making a lot of money that probably don't need to be here anymore.
I just saw the mental exhaustion that it took the 49ers to get back after the Eagles, and how you could tell that there was a sense of relief, but then it went to a sense of anxiety immediately after the Super Bowl. And then for them to be that perfect all the time, they're going to have to do it in order to get back, and it's not going to be as easy as it was this year for them.
I feel like the Niners had this this like drive last year, like, hey, we got screwed. We're angry. We have something to prove. Yes. And they drove them all year like they were the number one seed. But the problem was, I think they bought into it too soon. When they beat the Eagles, they're like, boom, look, we proved it. We're exactly what we said we were. We were the best team last year. We should have won. We should have won to the Super Bowl last year. Boom, but it's like, no, like, you're not done. It's December 3rd. And I think that was psychologically too much for them. That was it. Like, that was your Super Bowl. You proved your point. You ended the Eagles. You gloated about it, and then you went back. You reverted to being the team that you've always been.
They play the Kansas City Chiefs next year. When do you think they're going to schedule that? Towards the end of the year?
They'll win that game probably, right? They'll win that game, and they'll feel great about themselves, and then they'll find a way to lose in the playoffs. But, hey, for a few months there, they'll have everyone thinking they're the best team in the league. Make way for the 49ers, the class of the NFL. This is their year. It's inevitable.
This one hurts, and this one's going to hurt all off season until it begins. But at the back of your mind, you start to think if these older players aren't a little snake bitten by Kyle. Like, the creep starts, because we're seeing it on social media with these players calling each other out. And when would you ever see that happen in, that kind of regime, what they're doing? And I think Kyle's just, what can he say? What can he say? What can he say other than the fumbles? What can he say? But to your point, it was 0-0 in overtime, right?
You could say, it's on me. It's on me. I made the wrong call. I didn't realize that you really should take the ball second in overtime. And if I could do it again, I'd do it differently. That's all you can say, because that's the truth. Anything else is just like covering your butt.
Yeah,
that's the truth. You made the wrong call. Own it.
To be perfectly honest, I didn't realize that the clock wasn't even an issue.
Yeah, I didn't get it either. I'm not a head coach.
So they can just play a second. So why wouldn't you take the ball last? You can just take your sweet ass time.
I think as long as you want. Down. Yeah, and you can end the game if you want with a 2-point conversion if you want to. I mean, no one's ever going to make the decision Kyle made ever again. Brother Bob says Kyle Levy is too damn stubborn and no accountability. Marv Levy, Kyle Levy. Shiza P says in OT, BA was wide open in the end zone. Is that Purdy's fault or O-line? I don't even think it's either. I don't think it's the O-line's fault. To me, it's Kyle's fault.
He missed these. Because, I mean, hold on. You have Chris Jones, who single-handedly has been wrecking the game by himself. It's the same rules. The offensive line should have been like, who's got Chris Jones?
Sure. But like, even if they got Chris Jones, there was going to be an unblocked rusher. Like, and maybe he wouldn't have tipped the pass or blown up the play, but maybe he would have. I mean, they were getting their plays blown up by unblocked rushers all game. Steve Burford was in a damned if he doesn't situation. He picked the wrong one.
I think the problem is that Kyle and the 49ers got caught against a team that exposed them, which we all saw. I think they need to invest in offensive line, and they got to invest in, and they got to really invest in wide receivers that run routes. And I say run crisp routes to get open to beat press man coverage, because right now that was a problem because Purdy didn't have time to look over the field.
But the story of this game wasn't like Brendel or Burford or McKivitz getting physically dominated one-on-one by someone. It was the Chiefs' ability to repeatedly get unblocked rushers on blitzes. Repeatedly. And to me, that's a schematic issue.
That's a scheme issue. You're right. That's a scheme issue. Yeah.
So like you can bring in more blockers, you can have more answers for the blitz. Like you're getting beat schematically by Steve Spagnuolo repeatedly. And it's not the first time.
Yeah, to me, Grant, I told you, like, I think Kyle needs to look at this offseason and he needs to think about doing things differently, because in my mind, the league has caught up with Kyle. Very much that horizontal pass game that has been very much caught. And there's a reason why offense is down, because a lot of people have hired off Kyle's tree that are very much running the same thing. Kyle's got to adapt, or else he's only going to get worse.
I agree. I think they have a shot at Aziz or Patrick Queen. I do think they could bring back Aziz. Patrick Queen will be expensive. Moonman says, hate Kyle, lost lots of respect for him.
I think anyone that was a Kyle supporter and would argue with you, Grant, I don't think those people are coming out as much as they used to, right? I think not that you're doing a victory lap or anything like that, but I think this was
it's a tough week to support Kyle.
Yeah.
In fact, you're seeing a lot of people come after him, like Emmanuel Acho and Stephen A. Smith, I believe. I mean, like, people are really, it's obvious. What did he do? And if it were anyone else who lost a Super Bowl like this, they'd be destroyed. Yeah. Boxing fan, who do you think should be cut?
I have 3 players that I wrote down that if I could.
Okay.
Cut or traded. Eric Armstead.
Yeah.
He's for his contract and what he's worth and foot injuries, and now he has a knee injury. Unfortunately, he's got to go. To me, he would be the one that I would cut.
Okay.
Traded, Debo, because he's a name value and someone's going to give you some sort of recuperation off that, and you take that money and you give it to Ayuk.
Yep.
This next one's going to hurt me because I'm a big supporter of him and I think the world of him, but I also feel like now would be the time to strike while the iron's hot. You know, if you're going to revamp the system and get someone that's cheaper, younger, is that left tackle of yours.
Ooh, he had a real brutal game.
But
someone needed to say it. He was terrible in that Super Bowl. That was his big moment. Never been there before.
And he acted like it, Grant. He acted like it.
That's the truth. Shiza P says, does the roster want to make money or win Super Bowls?
Well, they made a lot of money. A lot of merch was sold 49er-wise. So that's, I think, one of the other reasons why they're not fired is Jed made a lot of money off the Super Bowl, Grant. A lot of money.
Yes, he did. The Gold Rush says, is it time to let Juice go? Ooh, $6.5 million in 2023 for 182 total yards and 2 touchdowns. He's 32 years old and set to make $7.5 million.
Yeah, he's got to restructure his contract, take a pay cut. But to me, Grant, you saw it in the Super Bowl, is that Brock, he's a better fit as a tight end than Kittle, because at least Juszczyk can run routes. He ran really good routes and he gets open. And he's not as fast as Kittle, nor is he the athlete, but he is a better route runner, which I found very amusing. Like, I've never seen Kittle do some of the plays that Kyle Juszczyk was able to do during the playoff run. A few of them, but not those tiptoe increment, really good pass, route running concepts. And I'm like, is Kyle a better route runner than Kittle even?
They could save $5 million by cutting Juszczyk. They're scheduled to pay him $7.5 million. He has no guaranteed money this year, and they don't use him enough to pay him that much. Now, maybe they'll start using him more, but like, he's going to be 33.
And if you look at PFF or you believe in it, this year was his worst year running the ball. Oh, like blocking.
Yeah. Daniel Regis says, we all know Wilkes had a better performance than Kyle Shanahan in the Super Bowl. Do you think it's possible Kyle Shanahan got rid of Wilkes because Kyle could have been on the hot seat? I mean, I don't think he's on the hot seat now, but I do think his players were looking at him sideways, and he did this to sort of appease them. That's my take. Don't be mad at me.
1,000%.
Don't be mad at me. I'll do what I'll make you. I'll give you who you. And it's his fault anyway.
Kyle is what I learned from Kyle is that he's terrified of losing the locker room.
Oh yeah, or those the leaders, the captains.
I think he saw it with his dad, and I think he saw it happen and undermine his dad because it happened in Washington, and he does not want that to occur to him. I think he has scar tissue, he has PTSD. There's a reason why he has control of everything. He does not want to lose those players.
Does Jed have a younger brother or sister John could give the team to? Shouldn't Jed be in timeout? He has 2 younger sisters.
That press conference that Jed did looks really nice right now, huh? That aged pretty nicely as well.
How predictable. Wave 9, GC, would you trade Purdy and Debo for Kirk? No. Kirk coming off no. Troll Heyman, Cap had better Super Bowl stats than Brock and Jimmy. That is true. That's just a fact.
Hey, listen, I thought
Cap
Brock
kicked ass in that Super Bowl.
Who?
Cap.
Yeah.
He was really good in that Super Bowl. I know he didn't come through at the end, but he was the offense.
Oh, yeah.
He was so good in that game.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, to me, it's Cap, Brock, then Jimmy, right? Brock didn't make – I want to say Brock didn't make any plays, but he didn't really have any negative plays. He was a game manager.
He was just a game manager throughout the playoffs.
And he could have won the game. That's the sad part. He could have won the game as a game manager. He could have won.
Cap was a game changer in that run. He was really good. Keith Murphy, the unbeaten Greenlaw, like he was better in the playoffs than Lamar Jackson. Cap was one of the more successful.
Has ever
I'm telling you, man. Cap was crazy good in 2 different playoff runs. Crazy good.
Yeah, basically stopped Aaron Rodgers from winning another 2 Super Bowls.
And it all came crumbling down in Seattle. He was killing it in that game, and then he threw 4 picks. I think he threw 4 picks in the NFC Championship game or 3 and a fumble. It was bad. And he never was the same.
Yeah, he was never
3 and a fumble. It was never the same.
It was never the same.
Keith Murphy says Greenlaw injury felt like Bowman versus Seattle in 2013. Except that was a contact injury. That was after a fumble, I want to say. Or
I will share with everybody that's one thing that I have seen modern medicine do beat in this realm is that Achilles injuries, knee injuries, elbow injuries that were life-threatening, people are coming back from them sooner and sooner. The technology that's out there, the therapy that's out there, people are recovering so much quicker. And we've seen it with older athletes like Aaron Rodgers and Kirk Cousins, who are much older than Greenlaw, come back a lot earlier. So I would say that, to me, it was it's unfortunate, and it was probably it's another reason why they lost the Super Bowl, because in my mind, Greenlaw is their best linebacker, and losing your best linebacker, it was very apparent who they started targeting. After that was Greenlaw's replacement. There's not a coincidence because of that.
Yeah, they're not stupid.
Yeah.
They're not stupid. They know where to go. Shizza P says the narrative this year will be beat the Kansas City Empire. No, just win the Super Bowl. Richie says, I don't think it matters, though, if Kyle lost the locker room or not. Jed won't fire his friend Kyle Shanahan. Well, they extended his contract for a very long time.
Kyle's not going anywhere because Jed already made the same mistake with Harbaugh. And guess what? Had he just waited it out, Harbaugh eventually became a winner. I know it's college, but I think Jed's never gonna make that mistake again. Adam,
if both teams score a touchdown, field goal, and the next score wins, taking the ball first isn't the issue. It's not scoring a touchdown the first pass needed to go for it. Adam, there was never going to be a third possession. That's the problem. The Chiefs made it clear. If the Niners scored a touchdown on their first drive, they were going to go for the touchdown in 2. They were going to go to end the game. They were not going to give the ball back to the Niners for a third possession. That's the problem. So maybe you want that. Maybe you say, okay, we can stop them. We want to put our defense in that position where they have to stop a touchdown and it's a 2-point conversion from Mahomes. I wouldn't want to put him in that position. It's Mahomes. No. Sorry, Adam.
The other thing is that Kyle played very much like he always does, relying on his defense. It just bit him because he went up against a quarterback that his defense couldn't stop. Right.
Daniel says, what do you think as Wade Phillips as DC? No, he hasn't coached in a while. He's old. No. Sorry. No. Claymore Customs, $1. Thank you. Claymore Customs, another $1. Thank you. All right. I'm going to eat some lunch. Then I'm going to do one more stream in an hour. I'm going triple stream today. Triple freaking stream. Why not?
Why not?
This was fun. Good stuff, Karan.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'll see you guys in an hour. Don't go anywhere.